Trump is filing a $15 billion defamation lawsuit against the New York Times and 4 of its journalists.
Yeah, this just happened overnight. He claims the paper lied about him and defamed him.
Picture this. A former president sits with his lawyers in Florida drafting a lawsuit demanding billions from America's paper of record. On the other side, veteran reporters, armed with decades of investigative work, refuse to back down. The clash isn't just about 3 articles or a book, it's about whether a courtroom can redraw the lines between political power and press freedom. The legal fight hasn't even truly started, yet the tension is already shaping headlines and fueling debates across the country. Why demand $15 billion for a handful of articles that most people didn't even finish reading? That number alone feels larger than life. But the lawsuit isn't about everyday readers flipping through headlines. It's framed as damage from 3 articles and a book that, according to the filing, presented Trump as corrupt and unfit for office. This claim goes beyond simple unfair coverage. It accuses one of the nation's most established newspapers of outright defamation. Here's the part that matters for you. Defamation suits work differently when the person bringing the case is a public figure. The courts set what's known as the actual malice standard. That means Trump would need to show that journalists didn't just get things wrong, but that they published while knowing a statement was false or, at the very least, with reckless disregard for the truth. That's not easy. Think about how rumors spread among coworkers. If someone repeats a wild story they heard and it turns out false, proving they knew at the time that it wasn't true is complicated. It's the same idea, only scaled to the national spotlight. What this means is that while the lawsuit makes headlines, the legal road is steep. Many media law experts argue that the filing looks less like a genuine attempt to win in front of a judge and more like a political tactic. Filing a sprawling, attention-grabbing suit lets Trump maintain a clear talking point: that the so-called mainstream press treats him unfairly. Whether or not he wins, the act of suing reinforces that narrative with his audience. That's why even the number, $15 billion, may be doing more political work than legal work. Now, the New York Times didn't wait long to answer. Their response was direct. They argue the case lacks any real legal weight and is designed to chill investigative reporting. From their view, allowing such a lawsuit to move forward undermines the ability of journalists to dig into matters of public interest. If reporters fear colossal damages every time they print an unflattering detail, they might hesitate to publish at all. That hesitation is exactly the chilling effect free press defenders warn about. It's not the first time Trump has clashed with major outlets. In the past, he secured settlements with broadcast networks after raising similar claims. Those checks were substantial, yes, but they came from corporations focused more on avoiding lengthy litigation than on defending investigative journalism in a courtroom. The Times, however, positions itself differently. Its identity and operations rest on fighting for editorial independence. It has more to lose from setting a precedent of fast payouts, so analysts expect far less chance of a quiet settlement. That brings us back to the core tension. On one side, you have a former president insisting that published stories inflicted serious damage to his reputation and political future. On the other, you have a long-established newspaper pointing to the high standard the law sets for public figures and warning of the bigger implications if courts begin to entertain cases like this. Here's the bottom line. The claim is that these articles harmed him. The requirement of the law is that he prove deliberate lies. The distance between those 2 points is wide, and that's where the fight sits. But the courtroom isn't the only stage where this plays out. The larger contest is over how Americans perceive news itself, who they trust to tell it, and what happens when politicians push direct challenges against the institutions that report on them. What if the money isn't the point at all? That giant dollar figure grabs attention right away, but when you strip it down, a lawsuit of this size functions on more than one level. Critics argue that it reads less like a genuine legal strategy and more like a political message delivered through the court system. By putting the New York Times at the center of a legal fight, Trump keeps the conflict with mainstream media front and center. He frames himself as the underdog battling powerful institutions, and that storyline plays well with people who already distrust traditional reporting. On the surface, this is a legal claim. In practice, it energizes his political base. Each filing, each statement about defending his name, signals to supporters that he refuses to accept what he calls unfair coverage. For many, that willingness to fight becomes proof of strength, not weakness. On the other hand, legal specialists view it very differently. They describe the case as flimsy and warn that even if it never makes it far in court, just dragging it along can have ripple effects. If news organizations must prepare for massive lawsuits each time they publish controversial work, it can quietly deter deeper investigations. That chilling effect might be the bigger issue hiding behind all the headlines. Now layer in where the case was filed. Trump's team chose Florida, not New York, where the Times is based. Filing in Florida raises the question of forum shopping, picking a courthouse thought to be more favorable in terms of judges, jury pools, or political culture. Even if the case stalls, the location itself feeds into perception. To his supporters, it becomes proof of fighting back from a home turf. To skeptics, it looks like a way to bypass tougher legal terrain. Either way, the act of choosing Florida shapes how people read the entire lawsuit, regardless of how judges eventually rule. The cost of lawsuits like this rarely comes from the verdict. It comes from the process. Outlets must assign legal teams, compile documents, and spend countless hours answering claims. That time and money don't just vanish. They divert resources away from reporting and into defense. You can see how that becomes part of the strategy. Even if no damages are awarded, the burden slows the press in ways that benefit a figure who thrives when media output is cautious. Think of it not as racing to win, but as parking a massive truck sideways on a narrow road. The goal isn't speed. The goal is to hold up traffic. If you place this suit next to Trump's past comments, the picture sharpens. He has often floated the idea that journalists deserve closer scrutiny from government, or that laws on libel should be stricter. Lawsuits like this connect those words to concrete action. It isn't abstract talk anymore. It's an attempt to use legal filings to test how far those boundaries can bend. What matters for the public is less the dollar sum and more the precedent. If one powerful figure can keep newspapers tangled in long cases, others might copy the playbook. That possibility raises real concern about how robust press freedom can remain under a rising wave of legal pressure. Here's the bottom line. The real consequence of this lawsuit isn't about a multi-billion payout ever reaching Trump. It's about reinforcing the view that mainstream outlets are political opponents. It signals that aggressive coverage may come with punishing baggage, and if that signal spreads, the press might hesitate, leading to fewer investigative stories breaking into the open. What you see and what you don't see could change in ways most people won't notice until later. So if experts are correct that the courtroom win is unlikely, it forces a different question. What other path could have been more effective for both the political stage and the flow of information to the public? Here's what matters. The strength of any democracy rests on the open flow of facts and ideas, not on billion-dollar lawsuits that try to reshape news through courts. When politics and press collide, the risk is not just about one case, it's about habits that could silence reporting over time. The smarter move would have been setting the record straight quickly, pointing to factual corrections and showing results through policy. That builds credibility without fueling long legal distractions. What this means for you is simple. Subscribe for clear, regular updates so you can cut through spin and see what shapes your news. Thanks for watching.